Welcome to the Thursday table of Hyderabad Institute of Excellence. We have with us here today Mr.Arif Razzack, who is basically a civil engineer, but who has done specialization in geotechnical engineering and MS from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And he's also an MBA from the University of Houston. And he's been working in the field of geotechnology and structural engineering for close to 30 years. And his career is pretty unusual, graduating as a geotechnical engineer with his unique skill set. He started working as a structural engineer, moved back into geotechnical engineering, and then with a combined experience, he again came back into the structural engineering scenario. Subsequently, he delved deep into engineering information systems, doing data analysis of engineering databases. And then he moved into commissioning of oil and gas production facilities, involving all disciplines of engineering. Not the usual engineering career though. Arif Razzack's experience has been profound and deep into real engineering, where data, statistics, and information analysis is intense and plays a strong role. Mr. Arif will speak about discovering yourself through career transitions and continuous learning across a career. Mr. Arif Razzack, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm honored and humbled, and I'll try to go over my life experiences and share with you some advice and thoughts on how you should decide your future careers. I know you're all high school students, and this is the time that you need to really reflect on what you really want to do in life. So remember that life evolves, and so does your career direction in ways that you may never have thought when you started your career. So that will be my topic, is the transition and continuous learning that you have throughout life, right? So first of all is career selection. Right. So what career do you want to go into? What interests you? You need to discover that about yourself. This is probably the best time when you're graduating. I remember when I was graduating, it was either become an engineer or become a doctor. That's it. Right. So nowadays you have many more careers that you can opt to go into. For example, lawyers, architects, or you can become a management consultant, an IT consultant, information technology, or IM, information management, IS, information sciences, or information systems, whatever you want to call it. And then there's all these acronyms: AI, artificial intelligence, ML, machine learning, statistics, and so on. So there are many other options that you have now, healthcare, accounting, finance, logistics, etc. But again, we all didn't just, get born and decide that this is what we want to do. We have to learn what we want, right? So you look at sources like, for example, YouTube. You might want to go to YouTube and look at all these different career choices that you have. Learn what people do. Ask people what they do. Understand that, okay, this is what they do. Do I want to do that? Or what is it that you want to do? Right? You have to discover yourself. Your whole life is a self-discovery process. So just remember, an informed decision is better than an uninformed decision. And again, an uninformed decision is far better than no decision at all, right? So if you say no decision, then you're just flowing with the waves and so on. So you don't want to do that. You want to learn as much as you possibly can. And I remember high school, we were all sponges, right? So you just soaked all the knowledge that you could. And that's what you should be doing at this juncture in life. And then once you decide what you want to do, stick to it and get really, really, really good at it. Focus and understand the basics and fundamentals, not just gloss over it. And I think one of the best things for this is to teach others, right? So by teaching others, you learn the subject better by being able to describe it, right? And just be very passionate about what you want to learn and what you want to do, right? So learning process is a continuous process. So I have some notes here that I'm reading, so we can see that. The other thing is that there's many different abilities, right? So there's technical ability. So you have the technical knowledge, the ability to understand the subject, the intuitive ability to understand what it's doing, what it's about, and how do I understand this and so on, or how I can make use of it. And then also the communication ability is how are you going to communicate your ideas and your thoughts, and that's probably one of the most important ones. But anyway, it's the three of them. It's like a triangle, and you have to have abilities in all three, not just one of them, right? So focus on technical ability, intuitive ability, and communication ability. Communication being very, very important. So also, it is very, very important to gain self-confidence and be able to speak in public with conviction and authority. Take a stand, understand what your subject matter is, and talk about it. Take every opportunity you can to speak at events, gain your self-confidence, and express yourselves, right? So, and that gives you the confidence that you need to excel in life, not just your career, for example. And as I said before, keep learning continuously, right? Remember that life will throw opportunities at you, and you need to be able to prepare to take it on. Life is a journey of learning. As my father always said, that the day you stop learning is that day that you die. So you have to keep learning. So one of the first thing is, and this is, I'm giving you some experience from my life, is you need to establish some role models, right? If you can, that is. I was very fortunate to have a very, very good role model, and that was my father, 𝗙𝗵𝘁 Razzack. He was a civil engineer. He was educated in Osmania in 1946, Aligarh in 1948, and then in the US in 1950 to 52. So he graduated then from University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. He started working for the state of Illinois Bridge Department. And he's designed something like 60 bridges in Illinois. And he's worked in St. Louis, New York, San Francisco, and continuing and job transitioning to other fields. He graduated as a structural engineer, but as he went into different companies and different projects, he ended up doing hydrology and design of dams, right? So for public impact. Some of his hydropower dams and irrigation dams were built in the US, some in Brazil at that time. And then with this knowledge and with this experience, he moved back to Pakistan in 1958. It's a company called ACE, and he was stationed in Dhaka, back then East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. And he oversaw many dams and water resource projects over there. I think Karnafuli Dam was one of them that he was in charge of designing and building. And as it happens, that's where I was born, right? So then he moved to Iran. And in Iran, he was in charge of some mega civil projects, hydropower and irrigation dam projects that were sponsored by the World Bank. And that's where I grew up, in Iran. And yes, I do know Farsi. And I would love to go visit Iran once again, but this US-Iran relations are not very good. And I don't know when they'll get better. So as a child, I was very fortunate to have visited all these projects with him. He took me to these projects. We went to this one project in Mohan, which is north of Iran, next to Azerbaijan. And at that time, it was nothing but desert. But from what I understand now, because of that irrigation project, and I have some old pictures that I can bring up, but because of this irrigation project, that whole area has become what they call the fruit basket of that entire area. So there's more apples and apple orchards and basically the fruit production of Iran and Azerbaijan is all over there. So he has basically in his life transformed an entire area into something productive for humankind. He also took me to another major dam called Hub Dam in Pakistan. And so I was able to see it while it was under construction. I was able to go in the sluiceways and go through the spillways and everything. So and that was quite a lot of fun as children, basically. We took the whole class. He impacted these countries beyond anything I can imagine, right? So and basically, I wanted to be like him, period. And he was my role model, and that's what I wanted to do, and that was my sole focus in life. So, so in a sense, knowing who your role model is, knowing what they do, and how you can make that similar difference also goes a long way. So basically, role models matter. You need to read about people, their biographies, and model yourself with them if you can find if you find that that's what you want to do, basically. So, so the next topic is basically to discover your passion and career options. So even though I knew exactly what I wanted to do, I wanted to be like my father, right? I did still explore other career options, let's say, because I kind of got interested in biology, right? So I decided to go ahead into advanced biology and in the medical track in high school. So I remember this is interesting. They gave me a mouse to dissect, no problem. I dissected the mouse, no issues. They gave me a fish, no problem, did that. They gave me a frog, no problem, dissected that. But then that one day, they gave me this rabbit. It was this white rabbit with cute red eyes, and it was the cutest thing I'd seen. And they took it and put it in a jar with chloroform, knocked it out. And then they put it on a board and gave it to me and said, dissect this. And I said, I don't know if I can do this. So anyway, that was it. The next day, I was enrolled in additional mathematics, back in the engineering track. So it was a way of discovery there. That I discovered that, okay, that's not what I want to do. Biology and the medical track is not for me. So engineering, basically we had just two options. So, so that's the track I took. I decided to go to college and study civil engineering in the US. And as it so happened, actually, let me go back. I went to college in civil engineering, which is civil engineering. It has many different. It has about 5 or 6 different sub branches. Civil engineering has like hydrology, geotechnical engineering, structural engineering, environmental engineering. All of these fall under civil engineering. So for my undergraduate studies, I did geotechnical engineering because that's kind of something that I got very interested in. It was basically soils engineering, foundations, dams, and slope stabilities, where you can design the slopes so that they don't come down. So basically what my father was doing, hydrology and geotechnical engineering. So I did that as my undergraduate with specialization in that. And then I went for graduate school. One of the things about graduate school is that you need to stand out. You need to make sure that you are the one that people will select over others because you have this one additional feather in your cap, so to say. So that was the whole reason why I went for my master's. And where did I go for my master's? I decided to go to the same university as my father because I was following his footsteps. And University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. So that's where I went for my master's. It was funny that in the first day of school, in class, I was sitting there and the professor calls out my name and then he looks at me and he says, "Are you perchance related to Muhammad Abdul Razak?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "He was my classmate." So this was pretty funny. 30 years later, teaching a classmate's son. And so that was very interesting for me. I got to meet his old professors. They even showed me his grades book, his register, and so on. So I was very intrigued to see or learn about his life as well. So I pursued this course of study and specialized in geotechnical engineering in my master's. But I also took enough courses in structural engineering so that I could be more broad-based, study-wise. So I graduated, and there were no jobs in geotechnical engineering at that time. I think environmental engineering was doing a little better, but I really didn't want to go into that field. So the first job that I could find in the US was a job as a structural engineer at a nuclear power plant. So I said, nuclear power plant, yes, I'll do it. So I took that job and I learned a lot in structural engineering and worked with them for maybe about 1.5 years or so. And then transitioned back into geotechnical engineering by joining another firm and getting into these, what should I say, they call them Corps of Engineers projects here, which is basically large flood control projects. So I got involved in that. So here's the thing now, the parallel between my father and myself. Now, he was a structural engineer and he went into hydrology and geotechnical engineering. Myself, I graduated as a geotechnical engineer and I gradually transitioned into structural engineering and then finally back into geotechnical and then back into structural. So these are the career transitions that you see in life. And you should be able to take these opportunities. So other thing is, don't be afraid to ask and seek advice continuously in life. We don't know it all. We were not born with all the knowledge in the world. We learn every day is a learning opportunity. My father, like I said, was my role model, and I always sought his advice on any and everything. So he advised me to take courses in business law and construction and project management because of his experiences. So I said, okay, let me try that, to try to take some business law courses. But before I could do that, to enroll in a law school program, I had to take something called a LSAT, Law School Aptitude Test or Admission Test. But unfortunately, I fell ill that week and I still took the exam, but didn't do very well. So, and that was the end of that. That was the end of my direction going into some law associated with engineering, which, by the way, is a very, very good combination if you'd like to consider that. So anyway, eventually I did take his advice for the business side of it, for the MBA. But by this time I was getting married. And as it so happened, my wife and I, being very supportive, my wife and I both decided to go ahead for our MBAs. So we were enrolled in the same class, right? So that was like, helping each other and giving the support that you need. So that was really good for me. So eventually I got my MBA, evening classes, and working during the day, going to classes in the evening, and eventually got my MBA in about 2.5 years, I think it was. And this kind of opened my eyes to different, bigger opportunities rather than just detailed design engineering. Things like, management of the project and how do you control the projects and so on. So I did specialize, however, in the MBA program. There are many different specializations in an MBA program. There could be, logistics. There could be management of information systems, general management, etc. So I specialize in something called management of information systems, MIS. So this kind of gave me a insight into programming, into databases, and into how data controls everything that you do on a project or in a company, right? Data is crucial. So, so after I graduated, I told my boss that, okay, look, I finished my MBA in MIS, and he suggested that I go into this different department called the Project Information Management. So how do you control the project with data? Where do you store the data? How is data helping different groups and so on? And what data is to be captured? So this was very interesting in a new field and for me. And so that was one career transition from a structural engineer to I should say, controls data information engineer. So my first project was, in this case, was an offshore platform in the middle of the Bay of 𝗙𝗵𝘁 in Mexico, right? So middle of the bay in Mexico. Fortunately, I didn't have to go there. I was doing everything from Houston. So Houston's where I'm based. So, and this gave me an insight into what, oil and gas projects look like and how oil and gas projects develop, right? So how do you get the oil out of the ground? And then what do you do with it, right? Do you, I know you know about refineries, etc., but there's multiple, I should say, divisions or, no, not divisions. There's pipeline, let's say, okay? So you have the oil coming out of the ground, okay? So how do you capture that? What do you do with it? So you basically stabilize it and sell it. And then those that buy it downstream will take it and then they'll refine it and then they'll convert it into kerosene, diesel, gasoline, mineral oil, not mineral, sorry, lubrication oil, etc. So this is basically give me an exposure to this. And I'll go over into this a little bit later. I'll talk about it also. So anyway, so like I said, learn something, be very good at it, and excel in it. Just focus onto that, and understand what is it that you're doing, and be able to explain it really well. So I worked with them for a little while. This was a company called Brown and Root, which later became Kellogg Brown and Root. And I did very well with them. I was with them for about 12 years. And ExxonMobil then recruited me to join them. This is back in 2001. And I joined them basically to lead their information management and specification standards effort. So what this was that they had no standards that related to how data and information is captured from different projects. So they asked me to standardize this effort and standardize how their projects are run. So that was my role. And basically I made this career transition at this point to major oil and gas projects. So, and that was something new for me because my only prior experience was that offshore platform that I did in the previous project, but this was global, right? So because ExxonMobil is a global company with facilities and production facilities all over the world. At that time, they were doing major projects, undertaking these major projects that no one else could, offshore, onshore, and in remote Arctic locations and places that were totally uninhabitable. So that again was my career transition to oil and gas. I started learning about it more and more and more. And to me, as I learned more, I understood more about, okay, how is it that the oil is discovered and then exploited and sold on the market, and what happens to it. So I think probably, let me see if I have some time. Yes, I do. Maybe I'll digress into this. Maybe this might be a good opportunity to understand what the oil and gas field or the oil and gas industry is like. So I'll just maybe go on a high level what upstream does. So oil and gas is basically three divisions, right? Or three, I should say, groups. One is the upstream, one is called midstream, and one is called downstream. The upstream part is all about getting the oil out of the ground, the crude oil, and selling it. That's it, right? The buyers of that crude oil are then the midstream and the downstream groups. Midstream and downstream, well, forget the midstream for right now, but downstream is basically what you do when you purchase that crude oil. You refine it, you turn it into gasoline, cracker columns, etc. You turn it into lubrication oil, or you turn it into kerosene, diesel, naphtha, whatever downstream products you have. And then those are retailed out, or they're sold to other companies that use it as feedstock. Upstream is basically getting the oil out of the ground, stabilizing it because it's under very high pressure, very high temperature, and then selling it. So so now this involves many different careers, many different, I shouldn't say careers, roles, right? So basically you have roles and you have careers, and you also have industries that you're in, right? So you can have like a mechanical engineer role in this career path in the oil and gas sector, or you can have a mechanical engineer role in let's say an automotive company, right? Two very different career paths, right? But you're still a mechanical engineer, right? So as an engineer or as a different career, you can go into different industries. So sorry, I digressed. Let me go back to how oil is discovered and what the oil and gas industry is all about. So it starts off with geology or geologists, right, who determine that, okay, this area seems very amenable to possible hydrocarbon deposits, right, oil deposits, and maybe we should explore this area. Okay, then geophysicists come in and they do all their sounding, as they call it, is basically to determine what the stratification or the layers of the ground is underneath that, and they determine how much oil it could possibly be there in the different layers of the solid ground that you have below. But once that is determined, then they determine the viability. They say, okay, yeah, we estimate that there's maybe 600 million barrels of oil over here, and if it is, then maybe it is something that we need to look at. So this is what I'm talking about, is the life cycle of a oil and gas project. So having that information, then they are able to say, okay, let's get funding for this. So they get a initial funding to start doing an exploratory well. So they go out and they do an exploratory well. Now these could be offshore or it could be onshore. If it's offshore, each barge costs about $100,000 a day, right? So they make sure that they go to the exact spot, drill, and find out whether it's viable. They do these drill boreholes, and they determine that, okay, it's good. So once that exploratory well says it's good, then they go out and they do an appraisal well. So they send multiple additional wells that they drill over there, and they get an idea that, okay, this is what we want to do. This is a good reservoir field, and we want to exploit this. So they get the development guys to come in and they say, okay, what are we going to do with this? What is our concept? How are we going to get this oil out of the ground? What kind of facility are we going to build on top of it to be able to extract this and to stabilize it? Because remember, oil in the ground, let's say thousands of feet below the ground, or maybe tens of thousands of feet under the ground, is under very, very high pressure. And also very, very high temperature. When it comes out, there's a lot of entrained gases in the oil that escape, right? So it becomes very dangerous to handle. So you have to be able to take the pressure and the temperature and then reduce it down to normal atmospheric pressure. So those are different steps. For that, they recruit chemical engineers, right? Chemical engineers to know, okay, what is the composition and how do I stabilize this? So they design the facility with the help of chemical engineers and with the help of mechanical engineers for the vessels and the equipment that they need. So that's where chemical comes in, that's where mechanical engineering comes in. And then also they need, environmental scientists, they need the regulatory people, so all sorts of different careers, different roles are employed during this phase of the project. Now this is called conceptual design, and then front-end engineering design, which is further refinement of the design. And then after that is something called detailed design, where they do the detailed design of the facility or the plant that they're going to put on top of the of where they are extracting the oil from. And then you've got pipeline engineers, okay, who are basically materials engineers, right? Who know the material and the fluid that comes through it from the ground. So there, what I'm trying to basically say is that there are many different roles, many different careers that you can establish in this oil and gas industry, right? So that's what I was trying to basically say. So the oil is basically stabilized. It is then, by stabilized, I mean brought down to normal room temperature and atmospheric pressure, right? So it's not under very high pressure that you have a lot of gases entrained in it. Some of these facilities are very dangerous because oil and gas under the ground can also have what's called H2S, hydrogen sulfide, which is extremely dangerous to ourselves. So I've been on projects where they had extremely high H2S contents. So one breath of that would kill me. So we have to wear gas masks with an oxygen tank. So I've been to those facilities as well. I'm not scaring you, but but just saying that what this industry is like. Anyway, I'm going to go back to what I was talking about. So that was just a gist of what the oil and gas industry is like. Now this is offshore and upstream. Downstream is a little different. Like I said, it's purchasing the crude oil and then making a product out of it by using hydrocrackers and reactor columns, etc. What else can I say? Safety. Safety is extremely important. Like I said, the H2S content is very high sometimes, and safety is paramount. Everything that they do in the design is based on safety. There are monitors, there are gas detectors, there are temperature, pressure, flow detection devices, and everywhere on the plant. So what I'm talking about is like considered like a factory or a plant, right? So and that's what I'm talking about. The whole design is based on a safe design culture. So okay, let me go back to what I was talking about. So when I took this opportunity with ExxonMobil, so one of the things, like I said, was design specifications and that were to be used globally on ExxonMobil projects all over the world. So I was basically traveling to almost every oil and gas project that ExxonMobil was involved in during that time. This is from about 2001 through about 2010. During that process, I've been to Southeast Asia, Russia. Russia is like, okay, Sakhalin Island, it's called. It's north of Japan, on the east coast of Russia. There, Australia, Norway, Nigeria, UK, France, Qatar. Qatar is very big on gas. And basically to employ, deploy company standards and project management systems on all of these projects. So for me, this was like a great opportunity to visit the world. I took side trips, managed to go to Spain, to Cordoba, to Alhambra, and so on my weekends. And I also made maybe about maybe 2 or 3 full round the world trips, right? So like leaving from Houston to go to UK, and then go to Qatar, then go to Indonesia, Australia, and then back that way to Los Angeles, and then back to Houston. So full round the world. So I was actually fortunate to have gotten involved in a multinational like ExxonMobil. So then I basically transitioned into project management and commissioning startup of oil and gas facilities. What this is basically, okay, yes, you designed the plant, you built the plant, okay, by construction. But the question is, does it even work, right? So that's what commissioning is. Commissioning means basically that you look at, like, okay, I have a pump, okay, I designed it, it's the right pump, I installed it, good. But does it run? If it doesn't run, it's useless, right? So that is called commissioning. So you ensure that every equipment on the plant works. And then eventually you start the facility up. That's called startup. Startup is not just like you press a button and everything starts, right? No. You bring up this, then you bring this up, and then you bring this up, and you gradually bring up the whole facility so that it gets working properly. And this is both for onshore and offshore projects. So essentially, now here's another career, not a career transition, but a learning opportunity. So I had to relearn the basic elements of electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, instrumentation, piping, HVAC, and telecom design, right? Telecommunications. I was a civil engineer, right? So, but fortunately, we have a broad-based curriculum in college, right? They teach you circuits, basic circuits in electrical engineering. They teach you thermodynamics. They teach you mechanics, right? And these are all things that at that time I said, why am I learning this? I'm not interested in this. But as life progresses, you notice that, okay, I remember that class. Now everything's coming back to me. And that's why I say a broad-based curriculum, a broad-based understanding when you do your studies is very, very important. Try not to just focus on one thing. Get really good at it, yes, but understand other things as well. Read up about other things. I mean, you all are very, very lucky to be in this time, mainly because you have YouTube. Everything's on there. You want to learn anything, you just go to YouTube, type it in, and you learn everything about it. There's learning, I should say, courses online. You could take those. There's a lot of stuff out there on the internet these days. We didn't have those opportunities. We had to go to the library, pick out a book, read the book, which I'm not saying you shouldn't do, but that is something that you should do as well. Books, read books. That's one of the most important things as well. So remember, learning never stops. You have to keep on learning. It's a life, continuous life learning commitment that you have. So eventually, so don't be afraid of being thrust into positions of leadership and authority. Embrace it. Carry on learning, right? Like I said, I was then. Let me go back to what I was talking about. So I visited all these countries, employed the standards all over the world, and then I was asked to lead a project, right? So all of a sudden, being thrust into this, the position of leadership, where you are basically, I had maybe about 145 people working for me at that time. And this was to lead the commissioning on a major project in Alaska. So it was a 4-year commitment, 2 years of 2 years in California. We only have a couple more minutes. Okay, I'll be really quick. Okay, so I had 2 years in California. I had got another year in Korea for the construction, and then another year in Alaska. And this is like the north of Alaska, so I would say maybe about 1,000 kilometers from the North Pole. So I did get to go there. It was very, very cold, and very blizzard conditions, etc. But we did manage to commission and start up the facility. This facility was like 200 million standard cubic feet of gas a day. To give you a rough idea what that is, India consumes maybe about 6 billion cubic feet a day. So let's say about 1/30 of the consumption of gas, natural gas in India. So Alaska was interesting. It was 24 hours night and 24 hours day during the summer and winters. Sorry, the other way around. And one of the issues that I had there was, how do I fast in the summer, right? It's 24 hours a day. So fortunately it was 12 hours, so that was okay. So, and then following that project, I was asked to go off to another project in the middle of the Caspian Sea, which was in a project called 𝗙cie𝗹𝗵𝘁, which I think they bill it as the most expensive project ever. It's like $80 billion project, and this is in the middle of the Caspian Sea. So when I grew up, I used to go to the south of the Caspian Sea, visit there, a place called 𝗙𝗶𝘁𝗵 in Iran, and we used to have a lot of fun there. And now I find myself in the north of the Caspian Sea. It's pretty interesting how life takes you full circle around. So in the Caspian Sea, basically it was an island in the middle of the Caspian Sea, and we were basically in a ship, and all of our offices and our rooms were in the ship, which was moored next to the island. The island was maybe a size of a football field, and it had wellheads on it and so on. So, and to get there, we had to get there with helicopter and back and so on. So I could never have thought about myself doing this when I was just coming out of high school, right? So what I'm basically getting at is you were transitioning all over and you have to do that. So, and basically I'll get to the end of what I was talking about. And then finally now, I decided that, okay, I'm going to try to learn something about data science and machine learning. So I decided to go back and to University of Texas, Austin, and get a, I'd say a postgraduate diploma in data science and machine learning. So that's what I've done. So I'm just giving you an example of learning never stops. Keep on learning, keep doing new things, and reinvent yourself, right? And most of all, know what you want to do. Learn as much as you can about the future options you have in career. All right, so that's all I had. I think I'm running out of time now, so I'll leave it up to questions and answers.
That was a very interesting talk, Mr.Arif Razzack. And the students here, they are very eager to ask you a few questions. And I hope we can have a good Q&A session for the next 10-15 minutes.
Sure, certainly.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
This is Magdum of 11th standard. So I need to ask a question. Sir, people most say, if we want a Rolls Royce, stop asking suggestions from Toyota owner. Sir, if we choose a career in our life, who is the perfect person from which we can seek some advice on our career?
Let me ask that question again. So what you're saying is, who is the perfect person to ask advice for your careers? Basically, I would say any and everyone you can come across. Just ask them what they do, and try to understand what do they do, what do they like about what they do, what they don't like about what they do, and talk to as many people as you can, because people just didn't. They're not doing things just well. Talk to as many people as you can. Talk to career consultants that you have in the school or in the university or college. I would say YouTube is also a very, very good resource. You have lots and lots of exposure to all the different careers that are out there, and then there are many different other learning websites as well that'll talk about all the different careers that are available and what each career is about. Did I answer your question, or?
Thank you, sir.
Oh,
Good evening,
okay.
sir. Myself, Fadal. I am from 11th standard.
Louder.
I have a question that while going through on our career, sometimes some failure also comes. At that time, how can we get focused again on that career?
Okay, so that is actually a very, very important thing to know. Resilience, right? Failures may occur. You get up and you keep moving. Okay, you don't just sit down, and that's very, very important for you in your life and career. I mean, don't take failures as that I have failed, but take failures as I have learned, right? So when you learn more from your failures than you do from successes, to be very honest about it, right? Because once you fail on something, you know you're not going to do that again, and you know you're going to do it better the second time, right? So do not be dejected by any failures. Keep on moving, keep on learning, keep on reinventing yourself. So treat it as a learning opportunity.
Thank you, sir. This is Mohammad Ayan Khan from 11th standard. Sir, is experience better than knowledge?
So, so we didn't all get born with experience. Neither did we get born with knowledge. We gained knowledge throughout, and we gained experience. Okay, so both knowledge and experience are tied together. You gain experience with your more knowledge with your experience, right? So I don't know if I've answered your question there, but that's what I look at it. I look at it that way, that none of us are born with our experience or our knowledge. We gain it. It's a learning opportunity. Is that good?
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have again one question. What are the various objectives of exploring ourselves, or how can we explore ourselves?
Okay, so that's the topic of my discussion this whole hour. Discover yourselves, see what you're interested in. But again, you don't know what you're interested in if you don't get exposed to it, right? Like when I was talking about how I got exposed to what I was interested in was basically a role model, my father, right? So, like I said, seek role models, understand their lives, understand their biography, learn about how they became successful. That's one way. Another way is read about different careers, read about different opportunities, let's say, and YouTube. Everything's on there. You guys are very, very lucky to have this resource in front of you. Growing up, we did not have an internet or this resource. So you have a wealth of information in front of you. Use it properly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arif Razzack. It's been a good interaction with the students, and we highly appreciate your time waking up so early in the morning and
That's okay.
doing this talk. So I think it's something around 5:30 Fajr time there. So we do appreciate that, and it's been a lovely talk. The students have really gained something, at least I feel.
I hope I have piqued some interest in everyone.
Sure.
Because this is the time that you really need to focus in on what you want to do in your future. Learn and keep on learning. It's a life learning journey.
Right. So thank you very much, Mr.
Welcome.